my personal experience, I think that other people's influences weigh heavily upon the decisions I make. Uh, I am a person who likes to stand out. I stand out from the crowd and I'm different. But at the same time, I'm also intellectual. Most people don't like that. Most people don't think for themselves. I think for myself. I'm a free thinker. And, you know, in our culture, we are stereotyped all the time, man. You got to be a basketball player. You got to have tattoos and stuff like that. So when I'm with my friends, hey, let's smoke weed. Let's go get a tattoo. Let's do this. Let's do that. And whenever I'm trying to do something positive, it's not even positive. Stuff I like to do, as in, you know what I'm saying? Hey, let's just have an intellectual conversation. You can't, man, because a lot of people will, not that they don't want to do it, because I think a lot of people might want to do that. But the problem is they're too worried about what other people are going to think about them.
I've definitely been afraid to show myself because of other people's influences. Because even though everyone always says, be yourself, show who you really are, as soon as you do that, they judge you for it. So I'm pretty comfortable with myself now, but especially in high school, I was really nervous to show who I really was, who I really wanted to be because of other people's opinions of me.
Okay, I'm pretty sure everybody has struggled at one point with their identity due to others' influence. Back in high school, especially, I feel like people are being pulled in all different directions. You need to do this, you need to do that, you need to be like this, and you need to be like that. And it goes the same with college. You're being told who you need to be to grow into the person you want to be. So the thing is, all you have to do is make sure that you stay true to yourself and look at your morals and values and things like that so that you can become the person you want to be.
Man, black people, we are definitely held to a standard. Let me give you an example. I remember I was going to go to the Marines at one time in my life, and I made this decision, and I was training with my recruiter, and there was a big group of us who was all training, and we would do these exercises, and we would do these races sometimes. We would just sprint, and we had done it a bunch of times. I'm tired, so I'm running kind of like not really giving my all, right? And this white guy's right beside me. He starts whizzing past me. He looks back and he says, "Come on, I know you ain't gonna let a white dude beat you, right?" And I thought about it, and I was like, wow, one standard we're held to is you got to be uh, just physically amazing. You know what I'm saying? You got to do all these things. I'll give you another example. Uh, I remember back when my first year in college, I'm a transfer student, but in my old school, I had a sociology professor, right? Who, when we had our last test, it was like the final. At the end of the test, I walked up to him, I handed him my paper, and you know he was talking to everybody about what grade they're gonna be receiving. And with me, he stopped and he was saying, he was telling me all these inspirational stuff like you can be whatever you want to be, you can do this, you should be a doctor, man. I mean, I really see that in you. And then he stops, he looks at me, he says, "Has anybody ever said this thing to you before?" So I'm held to a standard where now I can't just live a decent life. I gotta overachieve. You know what I'm saying? I gotta be a doctor, or either that, or I have to be an NBA star. And if I'm neither one of those, then who knows?
I feel like black people do have a standard, and whether it's good or bad almost depends on your social class. So when you have more money, they're expecting you to combat the bad standard of the people with less money. So if you have less money, you're supposed to be poor and ghetto and just nobody wants to be associated. Where if you have more money, you're supposed to be like pretty much the exact opposite. You're trying to aspire to be like the rich white people, and that's not really. I don't think either of them are good, but it's definitely different compared to the different social classes.
Black people are both held to a low standard and a high standard when it comes to things. I feel like whenever it comes to education and like your knowledge level, they're held to a lower standard. Like they expect us to know less. We're not dumb, but sometimes they figure like they get a certain image of us and they perceive us. But at the same way, that can also show how we're held at a higher standard because people think of us so low. We have to achieve more to compensate for it.
When I think about who paints the picture for us, man, of really this false black America is movies, man. I think of movies like Roots. I think of movies like The Color Purple. I think of movies like Boys in the Hood. I think of movies like Menace to Society, which everybody loves. Belly, Juice. I think of the music. I think of the Tupac, the Biggie. Um, think about the notable people in our culture, the Jay-Z's. I think about the rappers. I think about the news, the stuff we see on the news, man. I think about white TV shows too, not white TV shows, but TV shows with a predominantly white cast. What do you got? You got a token black guy. Think about McDonald's commercials, right? They're gonna have a person who sounds black make commercials. You got them looking at us, and a lot of times the reason why is just for money purposes, because they know it's gonna sell to us. And the reason why is because that's what we present. And man, I think about reality shows. Everybody knows that. I ain't even got to go into that. And I feel like we paint that picture ourselves, to be honest with you. Before, it was because of the oppression that was on us. And they had their foot on us for a long time, but now that foot is up. And I feel like we are continuing to let that paintbrush continue to stroke. And I feel like it's up to us to put that paintbrush down.
I feel like media is the biggest contributor to who paints black people in society. Because, I mean, some people would say white people, but I feel like they're looking at media and they're like, oh, well, black people agree with what the media is saying, so clearly that's what's right, and they just go with it. Because Love and Hip Hop, don't even get me started on that nonsense. But even when you look at shows like Scandal or Being Mary Jane, the people who are supposed to be influential black people, but then they're side chicks to white people or other influential people. So it's like, even the people who are supposed to be role models are bad, and the media does this to us, and we follow it. So they're the people who set black people in society. At least that's how I feel.
I believe that the false black culture is established by things that we see and are done by celebrities. People in our day and age, they try to emulate the things that they see. So whenever you hear about somebody going out and like having to sell drugs just to make enough money for what they need and things like that, somebody's like, oh, well, I don't have money, let me go do that. And it totally gives us a total false culture identity, and that's how people perceive us too.